Okay, so Masques, I started saying was one book and it's actually another. Masques is, I believe, the first book that Patricia Briggs ever wrote, and it is about these two characters. It's from both of their perspectives, and it switches back and forth throughout the book. This woman/girl named Aralorn, who comes from this noble family, and she decides that she's going to be this mercenary spy, and she gets entangled with this really powerful sorcerer named Jeffrey Imagi, or sometimes it's just called the Imagi, and he's this really powerful, really evil sorcerer who's trying to sort of take over the world. And so there's that, and then there is this character that she finds towards the beginning of the novel that is a sorcerer who apparently has lost his memory and he's turned himself into a wolf, and he finds Aralorn, and then slowly it's about their relationship trying and eventually they try to destroy Jeffrey Imagi, and that's the basic story. There's some intrigue in there because there's a king who's like a really young man that the sorcerer is able to put all of his people into different kingdoms to try and manipulate them so that they're all under his control, and has some people try and assassinate the king, and so he escapes with a bunch of nobles, and they're hiding off in some cave somewhere. Anyway, it's a good book. It's sort of standard fantasy, but what Patricia Briggs is really good at is writing characters who are in interesting situations rather than writing kind of standard pat situations and then inserting characters. I think that she's really good at creating kind of really realistic, relatable characters who have these struggles they go through, and yeah, I would recommend that. So that was one of two books. The second one is Wolfsbane, that she wrote quite a bit later, after it turned out a bunch of people had really liked Masques, which she didn't think it was all that good. So her publisher went back and they reissued it, and then she wrote that sequel. The next book is The Moorland Cottage. And The Moorland Cottage is another book by Elizabeth Gaskell, and I honestly don't remember it very well. I think in 2011 my plan was to either read all of Elizabeth Gaskell's novels or to finish the ones I hadn't read in 2010. I don't remember. It's sort of a lesser novel. It's not very long. It's about, I think, these two kids that grow up in the country in England, and the brother starts out kind of good, but increasingly gets, sort of falls away, falls off the path, whatever, and his sister falls in love with a boy from a neighboring family, and it's okay. I don't know. I read it mostly just for completist sake, so not one of hers I would necessarily recommend. Then I read Metamorphosis, which I had read a Robert Crumb adaptation of in R. Crumb's Kafka, which captures the highlights, but it's really a book that I think most people should read, but especially anyone claiming to be a hipster or that is a hipster should know Kafka fairly well, because existential angst is that's very Kafka-esque. That's sort of an they're very similar, and I think that's something you miss if you're just reading the Cliff's Notes of it, is this sense that Gregor Samsa has of just feeling useless and like he's a drag on his family even before he turns into a giant beetle. And then when he does, instead of feeling at all angry that they're all treating him as this sort of leper, he actually is just like, oh no, I guess that makes sense that they would treat me that way, because he can't really do anything. And then just slowly he stops identifying himself as Gregor, and his intelligence sort of reduces. He's like aware of what's going on, but he doesn't really know why people are acting the way they are. It's just an interesting book that goes into Franz Kafka's feeling of his own unworthiness and just not feeling like he fits in with his family or society generally, and he was a weird guy. So I read that, and then The Complete Essex County by Jeff Lemire, which was a book I read. It was a graphic novel. It was 3 stories that made up the entire story. 3 trade paperbacks that made up one entire story, but it was all self-contained, about Canada and about this family and these groups of people that are all interconnected, and a lot of it is very much, I think, supposed to be based on maybe not Jeff Lemire's experience growing up specifically, but just being Canadian and like this feeling of how important your roots are. The style that he draws in sort of bothered me a bit, but you get used to it after a while. That's a good series of books. You can read the first one, which is Tales from the Farm, and then if you want to read other ones, you can read those too. But yeah, that was April.